My mother-in-law gave my jewelry to her daughter and called me ungrateful. I opened my jewelry box before our anniversary dinner because I wanted to wear my mother's gold necklace. It was my habit on important days. The box sat where it always did, tucked behind my sweaters, smooth and familiar under my fingers. When I lifted the lid, something felt wrong immediately. The space where the necklace rested was empty. No chain. No soft clink of gold. Just a pale outline on the velvet where it had always been. My heart sped up. I checked again, slower this time, as if the necklace might appear if I looked the right way. I moved rings aside, lifted earrings, searched the corners. Nothing. That necklace was not just jewelry. My mother had given it to me the week before she died. She had fastened it around my neck with shaking hands and said, "This stays with you." I sat on the bed, the box open in my lap, feeling the air leave my chest. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I told myself there had to be an explanation. I just hadn't found it yet. Dinner was at my mother-in-law's house, loud and warm and crowded the way family dinners always were. I tried to smile, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the empty jewelry box. I barely tasted the food. Then my sister-in-law walked in late, laughing, flipping her hair over her shoulder like she owned the room. That was when I saw it. The gold necklace rested against her collarbone, catching the light. My necklace. My mother's necklace. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room blurred, sounds dulling like I was underwater. She noticed my stare and smiled wider. "It suits me, doesn't it?" she said, touching it with pride. "Gold really brings out my skin tone." My hands curled under the table. I felt heat rise up my neck, sharp and sudden. I looked at my husband. He was cutting his food, eyes down. No reaction. No question. My sister-in-law laughed, pleased with herself, and kept talking like nothing had happened. My heart pounded so hard I thought others could hear it. Something inside me cracked, slow and painful. Please hit subscribe now for more revenge stories. I waited until the plates were cleared before I spoke. My voice sounded small even to me. "That necklace," I said, looking directly at my mother-in-law. "Where did it come from?" She waved her hand like I'd asked something silly. "Oh, that?" I lent it to her. Lent. The word echoed in my head. "You lent it," I repeated. "It's mine." She smiled, thin and sharp. "You never wear it, Mirabelle." It was sitting in a box. What good is jewelry if it's hidden away? My sister-in-law tilted her head, enjoying the moment. "Annie thought I could get more use out of it," she said sweetly. I felt my chest tighten. "It belonged to my mother," I said. "She gave it to me." My mother-in-law sighed loudly, like I was exhausting her. "You married into this family," she replied. "Everything in this family is shared. You should be grateful we include you." Grateful. The word stung worse than the loss. Around the table, forks scraped, glasses clinked. No one defended me. Not one person spoke up. I leaned closer and lowered my voice. "It's mine," I whispered. "Please give it back." She didn't lower hers. "Don't make a scene," she said firmly. "You're being dramatic." My sister-in-law smiled again, fingers brushing the chain like a warning. "Relax," she said. "I'll take good care of it." That was when my mother-in-law turned fully toward me. Her eyes hardened. "Honestly, Mirabelle," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you are ungrateful. We take you in, treat you like family, and you complain over a necklace you don't even wear." The word ungrateful hung in the air, heavy and final. I looked at my husband. He shifted in his chair, cleared his throat, and said nothing. Not my name. Not a defense. Not even confusion. Silence poured from him like agreement. I felt smaller than I ever had. My face burned. I pushed my chair back gently, afraid that if I moved too fast, I would shatter. I excused myself and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I stared at my reflection and barely recognized the woman looking back. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while my husband slept beside me. The room felt heavier than usual, like the walls were pressing inward. I replayed every word, every smile, Every moment I had been dismissed like I didn't matter. My fingers curled where the necklace should have rested on my chest. The space felt cold. Empty.
Wrong.
I told myself not to cry. Tears felt useless. Instead, I counted breaths and listened to the steady sound of my husband sleeping, wondering how someone could rest so peacefully after watching me be humiliated. Around 3 a.m., I got out of bed and walked to the small safe in the closet. I opened it quietly, my heart pounding again. Inside were my other pieces. Or what should have been. My wedding bangles were gone. The diamond pin my aunt gave me was missing. I checked again, hands shaking now. Empty slots stared back at me. This wasn't borrowing. This wasn't sharing. This was something else entirely. As the truth settled in, I felt a shift inside me. If no one else would protect what was mine, I would. And I would remember every face that had watched me be stripped and said nothing. I did not sleep that night. I lay still, listening to the soft rise and fall of my husband's breathing while my mind ran in sharp circles. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my sister-in-law's smile and my mother-in-law's raised chin. The word ungrateful echoed again and again. By morning, my body felt heavy, but my thoughts were sharp. I moved through the house quietly, like I was afraid to wake something dangerous. I made coffee I didn't drink. I watched sunlight crawl across the kitchen floor and felt nothing warm from it. When my husband finally woke, he acted normal. He kissed my cheek, asked if I slept well, and talked about work like nothing had happened. I nodded, answered when needed, and waited for him to say something. An apology, a question, anything. He said nothing. After he left, I sat alone at the table and pressed my palms flat against the wood. My fingers ached, not from effort, but from memory. That necklace had weight, meaning, history. I promised myself one thing as the clock ticked forward. I would not let this be forgotten. Silence had already stolen enough from me. Later that afternoon, I returned to the bedroom safe with a notebook and pen. I needed to be sure. I took inventory slowly, piece by piece, heart sinking with each discovery. The wedding bangles were still missing. The diamond pin. A pair of emerald earrings I wore only once a year. I wrote everything down. The more I searched, the clearer the pattern became. Items with value. Items with stories. Items I never wore around my mother-in-law because she always commented on them. My chest tightened with a new feeling. It wasn't grief anymore. It was anger, steady and focused. I checked drawers, closets, old storage boxes. Nothing appeared. No note. No explanation. I sat on the bed and opened my phone. My sister-in-law's social media was easy to find. She liked to show off. My fingers scrolled, slow at first, then faster. There it was. A photo from 2 days ago. Her wrist raised proudly, my wedding bangles stacked and shining. Another picture showed the diamond pin fastened to her dress. The caption read, "Family Treasures." I locked my phone and stared at the wall. They weren't hiding anymore. They were daring me to speak. I confronted my mother-in-law the next day. I kept my voice calm, even when my hands shook. "Other pieces are missing," I said. "I've seen them online." She didn't even blink. "I'm keeping them safe," she replied. "You're too careless." Careless. I felt something snap quietly inside me. "My sister-in-law is wearing them," I said. "That isn't safekeeping." She sighed dramatically. "She appreciates nice things. You're too sensitive about objects." "They belong to my family," I said. "They are not yours to give away." Her smile vanished. "You married my son," she said. "That means you share what you have. If you didn't want that, you shouldn't have joined this family." The words landed like a door slamming shut. That night, I showed my husband the photos. He rubbed his face and exhaled. "Mom didn't mean harm," he said. "She's old-fashioned." Something inside my chest cracked wider. "She took my things," I said. "She's my mother," he replied quietly. "Let it go." I realized then that I was alone in this house, even when I wasn't by myself. I stopped arguing after that. Not because I agreed, but because I understood something important. Talking wasn't protecting me.
It was exhausting me.
I watched more closely instead. At family gatherings, my sister-in-law wore something new each time. A bracelet, earrings, a ring I recognized instantly. She made sure I saw them. Her smiles were sharp, like small cuts meant to remind me of my place. My mother-in-law watched my reactions carefully, measuring how much she could take. My husband avoided my eyes. At home, I began to search quietly. Old folders, boxes from moves we never unpacked. I opened drawers I hadn't touched in years. Dust coated my fingers. Memories clung to everything. Then, one evening, I found an envelope tucked behind a stack of documents in a filing cabinet. It was thick, yellowed at the edges. Inside were appraisal receipts. My breath caught. Each page listed descriptions, serial numbers, dates, values. My name printed clearly at the top of every sheet. I sat on the floor, papers spread around me like proof of existence. This wasn't just memory. This was record. Evidence. For the first time since the necklace disappeared, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I was ready. I didn't tell anyone what I found. I slid the receipts back into the envelope and placed it somewhere new. Somewhere only I knew. My mind worked faster than my fear now. The next morning, I called the jeweler listed on the receipts. His voice was older, steady, familiar. He remembered my mother.
He remembered me.
Yes, he said after I explained. Those pieces were custom. Unique markings. If anyone tries to sell them or reappraise them, I'll know immediately. I thanked him and ended the call with shaking hands. That evening, my mother-in-law called. Her voice was cheerful. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she said, "to celebrate my son's promotion." I paused, then smiled to myself. "I'll be there," I said. She hesitated. "Good," she replied. "It'll be nice to have everyone together." After the call, I stood by the window and looked out at the quiet street. They thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. They thought silence meant surrender. They were wrong. I wasn't planning a scene. I was planning a moment. One where truth would stand in the open and no one could wave it away. And once it started, there would be no stopping it. The envelope stayed hidden, but its weight followed me everywhere. At work, I answered emails and smiled at coworkers, but my thoughts kept drifting back to those receipts. Proof felt different from hope. It was solid. It didn't depend on anyone believing me. That night, I took the envelope out again and studied every page. Each piece had a description my mother once read aloud to me when we had them appraised together. She had believed in records. "Memories fade," she used to say, "but paper remembers." I traced the printed serial numbers with my finger. My name stood clear and steady at the top of each page. Not my husband's. Not my mother-in-law's.
Mine.
For the first time since the necklace vanished, I slept for more than an hour at a time. My dreams were restless, but they no longer felt helpless. When I woke, I didn't feel panic. I felt planning. In the morning, my husband noticed my quiet focus. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said truthfully. I wasn't broken. I was preparing. The jeweler called me back 2 days later.
His tone was serious now.
"If those items show up for appraisal or resale," he said, "I'm required to flag them." "Flag them how?" I asked. "As possibly stolen property," he replied. "Especially if the owner listed doesn't match the registry." My stomach tightened, but not with fear. With certainty. I thanked him and asked one more question. "Do you ever do house calls?" There was a pause. "For long-standing clients," he said slowly. "Yes." After the call, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my hands. They were steady. That surprised me. I had spent so long feeling small, like I needed permission to speak. Now I understood something important. I didn't need to accuse. I didn't need to shout. All I had to do was ask for the truth to be weighed. That evening, my sister-in-law posted another photo. This time, she wore my diamond bracelet, her wrist held up proudly toward the camera. I saved the image. Evidence didn't argue. It waited. The dinner invitation arrived by text, cheerful and warm. "Sunday at 6, my mother-in-law wrote. We'll celebrate my son properly. I read it twice, then replied with a smiley face. I wanted no suspicion, no tension, no warning. On Sunday, I dressed carefully. Simple clothes. No jewelry. I wanted my neck bare, my hands empty. I wanted the contrast to speak later. When we arrived, the house buzzed with voices and laughter. My mother-in-law hugged me stiffly. My sister-in-law barely looked at me, too busy adjusting the bracelet on her wrist. I watched everything. The way my mother-in-law glanced at the jewelry table with pride. The way my sister-in-law stood where the light hit her best. The way my husband stayed close to his family, just a step away from me. Dinner passed with polite talk. Promotions.
Plans.
Compliments. No one mentioned the jewelry. No one asked how I felt. I ate slowly, listening, memorizing. This wasn't the moment yet. This was observation. And I was very good at waiting. Halfway through dinner, my sister-in-law leaned forward to pour herself more wine. The bracelet slid down her wrist, catching the light. There was no mistaking it. The tiny flaw near the clasp. The custom cut. My breath caught, but I kept my face calm. "That's beautiful," someone said. "Isn't it?" she replied, smiling proudly. "Mom let me borrow it."
Borrow.
The word followed me like a shadow. My mother-in-law nodded. "Family things should be enjoyed," she said, glancing at me like a challenge. I took a slow sip of water and said nothing. Inside, something settled. The last doubt disappeared. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't kindness. This was ownership they believed they had over me. After dessert, I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. I pulled out my phone and took one clear photo. The bracelet. Her wrist. The timestamp. I didn't feel guilty. I felt precise. When I returned to the table, my mother-in-law studied my face. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect," I said softly. Later that night, as we drove home, my husband finally spoke. "You were quiet," he said. "Everything all right?" "Yes," I replied. "I was just thinking." He nodded, relieved, and turned up the radio. At home, I uploaded the photo to a folder I labeled simply, Records. I added screenshots.
Dates. Notes.
No emotion.
Just facts.
Then I sent a polite message to my mother-in-law. "I'm updating my insurance," I wrote. "I'll need all jewelry in one place for appraisal." There was a pause before her reply. "Good idea," she said. "You'll finally understand the value of real heirlooms." I smiled at my phone. She thought value came from possession. She didn't understand proof. That night, I placed the receipt envelope beside my bed. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because I wanted to remember. This wasn't about gold or diamonds. It was about being erased and choosing to stand back up. And soon, very soon, the scales would come out. The next morning, my mother-in-law replied to my message with a smiley face and nothing else. No questions. No hesitation. That told me more than words ever could. She believed she was safe. She believed I was bluffing. That afternoon, I tested the air. I mentioned the bracelet casually when she called. "It looked familiar," I said lightly. She laughed. "You should be flattered," she replied. "My daughter wears it better." The words were sharp, meant to cut. I let them pass without reaction. After the call, I sat still for a long time. I realized she wasn't trying to hide anymore.
She wanted to hurt me.
She wanted me quiet and ashamed. Instead, I felt steady. I organized my folder again. Photos.
Receipts.
Messages. Dates lined up cleanly. I wrote short notes next to each item, like I was preparing for a class, not a confrontation. That night, my husband asked what the appraisal was for. "Insurance," I said. He nodded, relieved again. I understood then that silence had trained them to underestimate me. They thought my calm meant weakness. They were about to learn the difference. Sunday dinner came again, just like she planned. Same table. Same dishes. Same polite noise. The jewelry appeared early, laid out on a velvet cloth like trophies. My mother-in-law beamed. "We'll make this efficient," she said. "Everything together." Her daughter leaned back, arms crossed, diamonds flashing. She looked proud, not nervous. I waited until everyone had sat before I spoke. The jeweler will be here shortly, I said. He does house calls. The room shifted slightly. Chairs creaked. My mother-in-law's smile thinned. House calls, she asked. He's thorough, I replied. Old school. She recovered quickly. Good, she said. You'll learn what real value looks like. My husband looked at me then, confused. I met his eyes and held them. I didn't smile. I didn't explain.
The doorbell rang.
My heart beat faster, but my hands stayed still. This was no longer private pain. This was public truth, walking through the door with a scale and a pen. If you're waiting to see the truth finally win, hit subscribe for more revenge stories. The jeweler stepped inside with calm confidence. He greeted my mother-in-law politely, then looked at me and nodded with recognition. That small gesture grounded me. He sat up at the dining table, placing his tools neatly, methodically. We'll start with whatever you have, he said. My mother-in-law pushed the velvet cloth forward. These, she said proudly, family heirlooms. One by one, he lifted the pieces. He weighed them, measured them, studied markings with a small lens. The room stayed quiet except for the soft clink of metal and the scratch of his pen. When he picked up the necklace, my chest tightened. He paused longer than before. His brow furrowed. This is registered, he said slowly. My mother-in-law laughed nervously. Of course it is. He looked up. Registered to Mrs. Mirabelle Davis. The silence that followed was heavy and complete. My sister-in-law's smile vanished. My husband stiffened. My mother-in-law opened her mouth, then closed it. That must be wrong, she said finally. The jeweler didn't argue. He simply reached for the next piece. The bangle came next, then another. Each time, the jeweler checked his records, then looked up with the same calm expression. Also registered to Mrs. Davis. Same owner. Matching serial number. My mother-in-law's face drained of color. This is ridiculous, she snapped. She gave them to me. I stood then, my voice even. Then there would be a receipt, I said. The jeweler glanced at me. I handed him the envelope. He opened it carefully. Pages slid out. Names.
Dates.
Values. He read them aloud. My name filled the room again and again. My sister-in-law stared at the floor. My husband looked like he had been struck. This jewelry, the jeweler said firmly, was not transferred. Possession without consent is theft. The word hung in the air like a final weight. My mother-in-law sank into her chair. No, she whispered. But the truth had already settled. The jeweler closed his folder and stood. I'm required to report this, he said gently. It's standard. No one argued. Not this time. At the station later, my mother-in-law admitted she had borrowed the pieces. The officers called it what it was. Theft. The jewelry was returned to me piece by piece. Cold metal. Familiar weight. Vindication, I didn't need to announce. In the days that followed, the fallout was quiet but deep. Photos disappeared. Invitations stopped. Whispers traveled faster than apologies ever could. My husband tried to speak. I told him we would talk later. Some conversations need time to catch up to truth. That night, I placed the necklace back in my jewelry box. I didn't wear it yet. I just let it rest where it belonged. Justice didn't explode. It settled. And it was only just beginning. When the jeweler asked for everything to be laid out clearly, my mother-in-law hesitated. Just for a moment. It was small, but I noticed. Then she straightened her back and spread the pieces across the table like they belonged to her. Gold chains. Bangles. Rings. My diamond pin. Seeing them together made my chest ache, but I didn't reach for them. Not yet. These are ours, she said firmly, like repeating it could make it true. Family pieces. The jeweler didn't respond. He worked quietly, carefully, treating each item with respect. That alone felt like justice. My sister-in-law stood frozen near the wall, arms crossed tightly now, no sparkle left in her smile. My husband sat stiffly, eyes darting between me and the table. I stayed silent. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is wait while someone else exposes themselves. The room felt smaller with every piece placed under the light. The air grew heavy. Even my mother-in-law stopped talking. She had always believed confidence was power. She didn't realize accuracy was stronger. The jeweler lifted the necklace first. He turned it gently, checking the clasp, the engraving only he and my mother knew about. He paused. "This is registered," he said. My mother-in-law laughed too quickly. "Of course it is." He looked up. "Registered to Mrs. Mirabelle Davis." The room froze. My name sat in the air, solid and undeniable. "That's impossible," she said sharply. "She barely wears it." "That doesn't change ownership," he replied calmly. He picked up the next piece. A bangle. He checked again. Same registry. Another bangle. Same owner. My sister-in-law's face drained of color. My husband leaned forward, confused and pale. My mother-in-law stood abruptly. "There must be a mistake," she insisted. "These were given to me." The jeweler didn't argue. He simply looked at me. I nodded. This was the moment. The turning point. The place where truth stopped being private. And if you're waiting to see lies finally collapse under their own weight, hit subscribe now for more true revenge stories. One by one, the jeweler continued. Each piece told the same story. My name, my records, my history. The confidence my mother-in-law wore all evening slipped away. Her hands trembled as she reached for her purse, then stopped. She had nothing left to prove. My sister-in-law stared at the floor. The jewelry no longer glittered. It looked heavy now. Accusing. My husband finally turned to me. "Mirabelle," he said quietly. I didn't answer. The jeweler closed his folder. "These items were never transferred," he said. "Possession without permission is theft." The word landed hard. My mother-in-law sank into her chair. "I was just keeping them safe," she whispered. I spoke then, my voice steady. Safe would have been returning them when I asked. Silence followed. For years, I had been polite,
Quiet.
patient,
Now the truth was speaking for me.
and it was louder than any accusation I could have made. The jeweler explained what would happen next. Reporting was required. Documentation would be filed. The jewelry would be returned to its rightful owner. No one argued. At the station, my mother-in-law admitted she had taken the pieces without asking. She called it borrowing. The officers called it theft. I watched from across the room as her shoulders slumped. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. The jewelry came back to me slowly, one piece at a time. Each return felt like a breath I had been holding for months. My husband stood beside me, silent. Shame sat heavy on his face. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Clearer. This wasn't about punishment. It was about balance being restored. But the reckoning wasn't finished yet. Because truth doesn't just correct the moment. It follows people home. Back at the house, the jeweler read through the receipts aloud one final time. Purchase dates. Values. My name printed cleanly at the top of every page. My mother-in-law tried once more. She gave them to me, she said weakly. I looked at her calmly. Then show a receipt, I replied. She couldn't. That was it. The moment everything collapsed. My sister-in-law left without a word. My husband stood frozen, finally understanding the cost of his silence. The jeweler packed his tools and nodded to me. You handled this the right way, he said. After they were gone, I sat alone and held the necklace in my palm. It felt heavier than before. Not with gold, but with meaning. They thought taking my jewelry would strip me of power. Instead, it revealed exactly who they were. And from this moment on, I decided I would never let anyone decide my worth again. My mother-in-law's voice rose suddenly, sharp and desperate. She gave them to me. She insisted again, louder this time. She said I could keep them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Then there would be a receipt, I said calmly, or a message, or a witness. There was none. The jeweler stood quietly, arms folded. Transfers of this value always leave a trail, he said. There is no trail. My husband finally spoke, his voice breaking. Mom, he said, did you take them? She didn't answer him. She stared at the table like it might rescue her. That silence did something to me. It didn't hurt. It confirmed. For years, she had spoken over me, corrected me, treated my things like they were hers by default. Now, she had nothing left to say. I gathered the receipts and placed them back in the envelope. My hands didn't shake. Truth had done the talking. I had only provided the room. The police report was filed that same evening. The officer explained it gently, like he knew this wasn't just about objects. Unauthorized possession, he said. It qualifies as theft. My mother-in-law nodded stiffly, eyes glossy. She didn't look at me. At the station, she admitted to borrowing the jewelry. She said she meant to return it someday. The officer wrote everything down, careful and exact. Words matter when they're written. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap, listening as years of dismissal turned into a formal statement. No raised voices. No drama. Just facts. When the jewelry was handed back to me, piece by piece, I felt a strange calm. The necklace rested heavy in my palm. Familiar.
Right.
My sister-in-law stood near the door, arms wrapped around herself. She didn't speak. Her confidence was gone. Outside, the night air felt cool against my face. I took a deep breath. Justice hadn't shouted. It had simply shown up. The days after were quiet, but the silence felt different now. It wasn't suffocating. It was honest. My mother-in-law didn't call. My sister-in-law deleted every photo that showed the jewelry. Friends who once praised her taste suddenly stopped commenting. My husband moved through the house carefully, like someone afraid of breaking something fragile. Finally, one night, he sat across from me at the table. I should have believed you, he said. I should have stopped this. I looked at him for a long moment. Trust isn't retroactive, I replied. He nodded, eyes wet. He didn't argue. I placed the jewelry back in the safe, each piece wrapped carefully. Not hidden, protected. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. No replaying conversations. No tight chest. The truth had settled where lies once lived. And nothing grows there anymore. Word traveled faster than I expected. Family friends stopped inviting my mother-in-law to gatherings. Conversations ended when she entered rooms. Whispers followed her. She stole from her daughter-in-law, people said quietly. No court could have punished her the way reputation did. She called me once, her voice thin. We misunderstood, she said. It went too far. I asked for them back, I replied. You called me ungrateful. There was a long pause. Can we move on, she asked. I have, I said, and ended the call. My husband listened from the hallway. He didn't stop me. I moved the jewelry to a bank locker the next day. Thick walls. Strong locks. Some things, I told my husband, need more than apologies. He agreed. For the first time, my boundaries felt real. The final return happened quietly. An officer handed me a sealed bag. Inside were the last pieces that had been recovered. Cold metal. Warm vindication. I signed the form and walked out into the sunlight. The world felt open again. At home, I opened the jewelry box one last time and placed everything where it belonged. The necklace went in last.
I didn't wear it yet.
I just closed the lid and rested my hand on top. This wasn't about winning. It was about being seen. They had taken what they thought I wouldn't fight for. They were wrong. From that day on, no one confused my kindness for permission again. A week later, my mother-in-law invited me to dinner. Her message was careful, every word measured. I'd like to clear the air, she wrote.
Please.
I accepted, not because I wanted peace, but because I wanted closure. When I arrived, the house felt smaller than I remembered. The table was set neatly, but the warmth was gone. She greeted me quietly, her shoulders tense, her eyes avoiding mine. Dinner passed with stiff conversation. Finally, she folded her hands and spoke. I misunderstood, she said. I didn't think you cared so deeply about those things. They were my mother's, I replied. I told you that. She nodded, swallowing. I'm sorry. The apology sounded practiced, but I accepted it anyway. Not for her. For myself. I stood to leave shortly after. At the door, she said, I hope you can forgive me. I looked at her calmly. Forgiveness isn't the same as trust, I said. I wish you well. And I meant it. The story spread quietly. Then, all at once, friends whispered. Relatives asked careful questions. My mother-in-law stopped hosting gatherings. Invitations dried up. No one shouted. No one accused her loudly. They just remembered. She stole from her daughter-in-law, people said behind closed doors. The words followed her everywhere. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't defend her. I didn't need to. My husband watched it happen with a heavy expression. One evening, he said, I never thought she would go that far. I did, I replied gently, because she never thought I would stop her. He nodded slowly. The house felt quieter after that, lighter, like something unhealthy had finally been removed. I noticed changes in myself, too. I spoke more directly. I said no without apology. I trusted my instincts again. Reputation had done what arguments never could. It told the truth without asking permission. One night, my husband sat beside me on the couch, hands clasped tightly. I failed you, he said. I should have stood up for you. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence sit between us. When I needed you, I said finally, you chose comfort over truth. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know. I can't undo that, I continued. And neither can you. He asked if we could rebuild. If time would fix it. Time doesn't fix silence, I said. Action does. We agreed to counseling. Not as a promise, but as an effort. I didn't know yet where we would end up. What I did know was this. I would never again beg to be believed. Love without protection isn't love. It's convenience. And I was done being convenient. The next morning, I moved all my jewelry to a bank locker. Thick steel. Private code. A space no one else could access. When my husband asked why, I didn't soften the truth. Some things need walls thicker than apologies, I said. He didn't argue. I felt relief the moment the locker closed. Not because I feared loss, but because I valued safety. At home, I rearranged the bedroom, cleared drawers, made space that felt like mine again. I realized then that healing wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about building systems that honored what I learned. Trust is precious. So is proof. And both deserve protection. A month later, I donated one small piece to a women's shelter fundraiser. My mother's old silver chain. It wasn't worth much money, but it carried meaning. As I placed it in the donation box, I felt something release inside me. Not loss. Cleanliness. I wasn't giving away my past. I was honoring it. That night, I slept with the necklace beside my bed, not on my neck. It no longer needed to prove anything. I had reclaimed more than jewelry. I had reclaimed myself. 2 weeks after everything settled, the jeweler called me again. His voice sounded thoughtful. You handled your records better than most people, he said. Have you ever considered helping others organize heirlooms? I laughed softly at first. The idea felt strange. Then I thought about the envelope. The receipts. The way paper had protected me when people didn't. He explained that many families fought over jewelry because no one kept clear records. You'd be good at this, he said. You understand both value and emotion. I took the job part-time. I helped clients sort stories from ownership, memories from proof. I listened to women who felt small in their own families. I showed them how to protect what mattered. Each time I filed a receipt, I felt stronger. What started as theft had led me somewhere unexpected. Not bitterness. Not fear. Purpose. Months later, my mother-in-law visited quietly. She looked older, smaller, like pride had finally grown heavy on her shoulders. I've learned humility, she said. I nodded. That's good. She waited for forgiveness. I didn't give it. I gave truth. Learning is only useful if you keep it, I said. She left without arguing. I didn't feel cruel. I felt complete. Every year after that, I redid the appraisals. New dates. Updated values. Same name. Mine. I kept copies in the bank, at home, and digitally. Proof layered over proof. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. On my anniversary, I wore the necklace again. Not for romance. Not for memory. For victory. I stood taller that night, gold warm against my skin. She thought giving away my jewelry would strip me of worth. But truth, like gold, does not tarnish. When weighed on honest scales, it always shines heavier than lies. And this time, I kept everything that was mine. If this story stayed with you, like the video, subscribe for more powerful revenge stories, and tell me in the comments what part hit you the hardest.